From Washington, D.C. to the heart of America, welcome to Mark Alford's America. I'm Freshman Congressman from Missouri, Mark Alford, and I believe in America. I believe in you. And most importantly, I believe that our greatest days are still ahead. You know, each week we take you behind the scenes to share the stories, news, legislation, and to meet the great folks who are helping shape our nation. Today we're talking with Congressman Kevin Hern. He proudly represents the 1st District of Oklahoma. He's an entrepreneur, an engineer. He has a deep appreciation for the sacrifices that military families make. He's the epitome of hard work and the American dream. He overcame incredible adversity while working his way through school and earning an engineering degree. After tragedy struck the engineering industry, he worked and then sold a hog farm to raise the money to buy a McDonald's franchise. And guess what? Ended up owning 24 restaurants. In addition to that, Kevin's been a successful entrepreneur in banking, manufacturing, real estate technology, sports publishing. He's even a pilot. He was sworn into Congress in 2018. Right now, he serves on the House Ways and Means Committee. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Kevin Hern to 1516 Longworth. Good to have you here.
Mark, it's great to be with you.
How's that for a build-up?
That's big.
What did we leave out? Anything?
I was born in Belton, Missouri.
Were you really?
Yeah, my dad was stationed at Richard Gabar Air Force Base back in the day, a few years ago.
Have you been back lately?
Oh, yeah. I actually have a sister that's buried there. She was born about a year before me and died just a little after birth, and she is buried in the Belton Cemetery.
Yeah, that's a big cemetery. Carrie Nation is buried there.
Really?
Yes. Wow, I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's a little tidbit there I saved.
How did you, so you were an engineer, you got an engineering degree. First off, you grew up pretty poor, didn't you?
Well, Mom and Dad, so after we left Richards Gabar Air Force Base, we moved to Wichita to McConnell Air Force Base. Mm-hmm. I was born in 61. My brother was born in 63. My sister was born in early 60. And my dad ended up retiring after 22 years, but he'd gone to Vietnam 3 times. And the third time, my mother, she was young, and she said, I can't do this anymore, this military life. That's why I really understand the family side of this, because war is devastating. Multiple deployments are devastating. And my dad went to Vietnam for the 3rd time, and she said, I'm moving, taking you and your brother, and I'm going. Of course, I was young. I was only 7 at the time. And we're going to move to Arkansas, where I was from. And she moved back to Arkansas, took my brother and I. That's where my dad was from and she was from. That's where they met. And they got divorced, and my mother married a guy that became my stepdad, who was absolutely worthless when it came to working and supporting a family. And we lived on food stamps and no running water, no indoor plumbing until the 8th grade. And so,
is that what drove you to what you?
Well, you really have a binary choice. So I saw 1st generation welfare. His mom and dad were hardworking. His mother was a great mother. He was an only child, my stepdad, and his dad worked hard, and he was a pipeliner, made a lot of money. But my stepdad he just figured out how to milk the system back in the 70s. And, you know, when food stamps were actually mailed to your mailbox, I mean, his heaviest lift was to get up off the couch and go get a food stamp check every month out of the mailbox. And so when you're the oldest, my mother went on to have 3 more children with him. And my sister, the first child that they had, was born with spina bifida, the very disease that took my older sister's life. And she's still alive today. Had a child, has spina bifida. So that's, you know, you get a sense of purpose. But what I realized, being the oldest, I can still remember the embarrassment of my mother, who was embarrassed to be on food stamps, her family had done very well in life. Remember her saying to me, Kevin Ray, my middle name, you always call your kids by the middle name when you're serious about something, to go take this back because food stamps won't buy it. I can still see that visual today. And so that's an embarrassment factor, but it's also to tell you, if you're going to ever have money, you can't get it from the government. The government will never make you successful. And I took a different path. I would skip school, work at a sawmill, make $14 so I could have gas money for my car. And up until, you know, paying rent when I was in 8th grade on, to stay at home so I could live at home because he was too lazy to work. My mother didn't have any money. I would go out and work. And up until they bought a truck in my senior year in high school, and they couldn't afford it. So instead of having repossessed, I worked and paid for the truck so they have a way to drive. And those kind of things just sort of build upon that. You know, that's why I'm so adamant about people moving off of welfare, and work is the only way to do that.
You were never a victim, though.
Never.
You didn't look at yourself as a victim.
I never did. I looked at this as the greatest opportunity in the world was the United States of America. Nobody, I don't think there's any place in the world that you could do what I did. A guy that came from absolutely nothing to achieve tremendous success in business and then go on to serve and hope to protect this opportunity for future generations, which is the very reason I'm here. It's not for a job, not for the paycheck. It's to preserve the opportunities that's made this nation the greatest place, the magnet for the rest of the world to come to experience success.
So what has happened in our society, in our nation, where, look, there are a lot of people who look at life and look at themselves as victims and want to take advantage of what others are willing to offer rather than to really get out there and earn it like you did.
Yeah, I think it's really a combination. I don't really think there's any magic in it. I think it's like as we become a more prosperous nation, we never really want our kids to suffer. So we look at our kids and say, we could be real hard noses. I think every generation sort of lives a better life than the previous generation. I mean, think about it. We're not tying our horse up at the hitching post anymore. And, we're able to go buy groceries and all of our roads aren't dirt. So things have gotten better along the way. But I think it's always difficult to have the past generations have it, quote, as hard as you did to make their some experience mean something. And I think it's the way when you get into positions of power that can be able to mete out money, if you will, to people across America. And I do think there's some of this that while it's altruistic to go out and help people out, we should be rewarding and saying the success of these programs is how many people we lift out of poverty into prosperity. And unfortunately, and you've seen it, I've seen it, the way we measure these programs are how many people are in the programs and how much money we're spending on the programs. We never
Not how many we got off the program.
Yeah.
Farm Bill's kind of like that. We're looking at now trying to get the Farm Bill and looking at SNAP. We used to be called food stamps.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but there are $32 million a day in overpayments in the SNAP.
I believe it. Everybody's seen my world. And this is when you actually had to go get checks from the mailbox. Now it's being direct deposited, and there's really very little oversight.
Which for the people who truly need it, look, we live in the greatest nation known to man. If someone's truly down on their luck, out of a job, can't work, can't do job training, yes, we should help them on a temporary basis. But there's a waste, abuse, and fraud and overpayments that I think we need to rectify in this program.
Well, we just had today the president of the American Enterprise Institute at the Republican Study Committee, and we talked about this. They look at these benefit clips, and our programs disincentivize people wanting to be successful and move off of government. I mean, I still have family members, siblings, that are a product of how do you keep these programs going. And when you look at, I'll give you an example. This is just last week in my office. We had our folks, blind, impaired vision people came by all of our offices last week. And a lady in my office from Oklahoma said, if I make $1 extra per month or $12 extra per year, I lose $1,500 per month in benefits from the government. And she was saying this, she was saying that it's a problem. She said, I want to work, but I cannot work. Now, you and I don't often hear that from a lot of members or people come by. But here's a group of people, seeing impaired, blind, that want to work, that want to be gainfully employed, that don't want people to feel sorry for them. But if they do, if they make $12 extra, they lose $18,000. That's just wrong. It's just wrong. We need to change our programs to be outcome-based, not day-to-day based.
Of course, being on Ways and Means, this committee, which you're on, that Jason Smith from Missouri is the chair of, you oversee tax policy. We just voted on a big tax bill, basically, that provides more child tax credits. How important was that to our nation?
It was big because I ran for office with the idea that we would get government out of the way of business so we could create jobs and put Americans to work. I am a huge believer that job creation and work are synonymous with success and the preservation of this nation as we know it. And I'll give you an example of that. Ways and Means has direct oversight over the social safety net programs we have in America. And we know through the Government Accountability Office, GAO, that there are roughly 92 programs in America that are federally backed that put out about $1 trillion a year to support those who need help. And that includes Medicaid, the employee retention tax credit, but there are so many other low housing subsidies, all these different programs out there to help people. And believe it or not, I mean, there are members of Congress, both Republicans and Democrats, that want more of these programs. And when we reached out to GAO for an accountability that it's in their name, they don't even know what programs are working or not. They just want more programs as well. So it's gotten too big. We've got to go back and hone this in. I've been a big proponent of Dr. Ben Carson, the former HUD secretary's, what he did. It was very silent. He has an extraordinary story coming out of Michigan, very impoverished, and became the doctor that did the first separation of Siamese twins. Later became a presidential candidate and then the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. But he did these 100 centers across America where people could go to one location to sign up for everything, and then they would not have to spend all their time chasing around the communities trying to find these different programs. So I think there's a lot of work we can do, and we need to do it.
Folks, when we come back, we're going to have more with Congressman Kevin Hern, the chair of the Republican Study Committee. We're going to be talking about what is the Republican Study Committee, his race for Speaker of the House, and most importantly, in my book anyway, the one piece of advice that he gave me when I was running for Congress that really helped my marriage. You don't want to miss it when we come back. You're listening to Mark Alford's America. Stay with us. Welcome back to Mark Alford's America, where we give you a behind-the-scenes look at Washington each week, let you meet some of the folks I work with helping shape our great nation. Today we're talking with Congressman Kevin Hern, a former small business owner, chair of the Republican Study Committee, and also he ran for Speaker of the House. Why did you want to be Speaker of the House?
Well, I think I've never shied away from the opportunity to help people be better and to be in leadership. I think the world needs really good leaders. I spent a lifetime in leadership and business, and you learn a lot of things in the business world where you're the last to get paid as a small business person, and that you have to listen, but ultimately you have to make a decision. I've seen so many people in leadership get sort of paralysis by analysis. There's so much incoming information they can't make a decision. And I welcome the opportunity. There are people that asked me if I'd consider running. And as you know, it was a very engaging time, 10 weeks straight as we went through that process. It was quite an honor to be considered. It really was.
When you look at what's going on now with our budget process, the appropriation process, heck, we still don't have 4 appropriation bills done, right? From this is last year. And then now we've got to look forward to 25. What is broken in the way we do things here that we're not getting our job done?
When you talk to the everyday American, whether they write a budget down or they have it in their head, they know that they can only spend more than they make for so long, and then you have to pay it back. What they don't understand is how we can continue to do this. Up here in Washington, D.C., everybody wants to cut somebody else's program or their spending, but not the ones that they're working on. And what it's led is our country to have approaching $35 trillion in debt. By the time the election gets here, by the end of this year, it'll be over $36 trillion. And we're encumbering future generations, not just our kids or our grandkids, but our great-grandkids and their inability to have the prosperous lifestyle that we've had. And it's very frustrating for us to continue to do that. And I think if every American knew and had confidence that we would pay back our debt, I think there's a lot of things that could change. If they knew we cut programs and took that money to pay off the debt and don't create new spending programs, I think they would be okay with that. I think there would be members of our own party that are out there voting on us that if we were raised taxes and took all of those new tax dollars and went to pay off the debt so that their kids and their grandkids could have a better future, they would be okay with that. But they just don't trust Washington, D.C. And that's the problem. When you look at this Israel bill right here, you've got Republicans, Democrats, Congress, House and Senate, White House, all want to say we're Israel's friend, they're our greatest ally. But we come down to voting on a bill to fund Israel now, to get them money because they're under attack from the north, from the south. Hamas has taken some of their folks hostage. And now you've got the Democrats, as sad as this sounds, holding the Israel funding hostage because they want to fund Ukraine. It's insane up here. It drives people crazy. nobody wants to fix a problem. They want to just take in leverage for more spending or for their own pet project. You could never get away with that in business.
Well, now the President of the United States is threatening to veto a $17 billion package to help Israel resupply the Iron Dome, help it defend itself against these monsters, basically. The President of the United States is going to deny aid to Israel.
It's really sad. It really is. And, and the President and Chuck Schumer in the Senate, Chuck Schumer is threatening not to even put it on the floor. He's holding it hostage because he's upset with us on the House side, Republican-led House, Speaker Johnson, myself, others, pushing on this vote to get to the floor, send it clean so that we don't have this sort of supplemental that has all of these different things in it. We want to just get the supplemental clean where it has a border bill versus Ukraine. And Chuck Schumer is fearful of that conversation, so he is probably not going to put the Israel bill on the floor. He said he would not put it on the floor. And therefore, he's appeasing the White House so that the White House doesn't have to make a tough veto vote.
What's wrong with each thing standing on its own, and then we can vote on the merits of that particular funding?
Well, Congressman, you're making too much sense now. There's the problem with this place, as you found out very quickly.
It just doesn't make. Where do you stand on more Ukraine funding?
Well, I just came from a classified setting, so obviously can't talk about that, but certainly didn't get the answers to my question.
Neither have I.
Yeah, and it's very frustrating. I think the American people want to know when we don't have any troops on the ground. We have, really have just money going in. It's hard to understand how we control our destiny on when it ends. And I think the American people are saying, we're going to tell you when it's going to end because we're going to quit sending money.
But we want to know what's the end game.
Yeah.
We can't get an answer to that. Does it involve taking back Donbass, Crimea? What does victory look like for Zelensky?
Well, the general theme is that everybody wants Russia out and we want Ukraine to be a free nation. That's a very expensive and a very long proposition because that only happens when Putin decides to lay down his arms and retreat. And I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Had the president not slow rolled out the aid, given the F-16s, given the attack of missiles, given the Abrams tanks, this could have been over.
Well, as one gentleman said about President Biden, about Senator Biden, is that for, at that time, 47 years, every decision he'd made on foreign policy was incorrect, and his decision on Afghanistan to pull out of August of 2021 was an atrocious example set for the rest of the world. And because of that weakness at that moment, it's why we're seeing all the hostilities around the world.
That is the defining moment that got me to run for Congress. I was throwing things literally at the television. I could not believe that the President of the United States did that.
Well, you look today, the Houthi rebels who got a lot of those munitions, $80 billion or so, now using those and lobbying those and using those for protection as they send missiles toward our transports coming through the Suez Canal and through the Red Sea. And we're having to spend money now to go take them out again.
Real quick, what is the Republican Study Committee?
Yes, the Republican Study Committee has been around for 50 years this year, and it stood for this test of time because it's about the conservative conscience of the conference, and it transcends all majorities, minorities. It continues to do the work, and what we're most proud of is doing a balanced budget every year, which I chaired for 2 years, and then again this year we put out a balanced budget again, of which President Biden was totally opposed to. In fact, his comms person, Corinne Jean-Pierre, said at a podium that it was so good that it was going to undo the last 2.5 years of great policies with Joe Biden. So that's like the best, crowding moment in my 3 years of working on the budget.
When I came here, I had not won the race yet, but I met with you at Capitol Hill Club. You gave me the best piece of advice were I to be elected to Congress. You remember that advice you gave me?
I do.
What was that?
I was sitting there looking at your wife, and we were talking, and she was asking questions, and you and I were talking, and I said, you get so busy at this place. We get busy doing our thing, and that you're going to have a hard time just finding time to talk to your wife and your family, that every moment you have that you can get from walking from your office to the Capitol or meeting to meeting, give your wife a call. You'll be better for it, because before you know it, it will be noon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You've not called your wife, and she's wondered what you're doing.
She thinks you walk on water.
Yeah.
It was great advice. I try to do it. I did it today, and it works because you do get at the end of the day and you don't remember what you did. You have 16 appointments in one day, and it's like a blur. Kevin, thank you so much for being my friend, my mentor, for being a member of Congress and a great American. I appreciate you. Folks, that's it for this week's edition of Mark Alford's America. We'll talk again next week. Until then, remember, I believe in you. I believe that our best days are still ahead of us. And Kevin Hern, I believe in America.